Welcome into your PFF Draft Review, powered by PFF Edge and Elite. Today it's all about the Indianapolis Colts, Sam, who make a pre-draft trade, moving from number 3 overall down to number 6, accumulating all sorts of draft capital, which I think was a great move for a team that was just really in need of talent across the board. On both sides of the ball, right? So, and they did that. They attacked the offensive line, they attacked the edge rush. So let's get into it. They kick it off with Quinton Nelson, number 6 overall, a guy that everybody loved. Everybody seemed to acknowledge as either the best player in the draft or the safest player in the draft, and we were right there with him. Our number 1 graded guard, and a guy who posted a dominant 95.1 overall grade last season.
Yeah, he is a monster. He does all the things well on the field that PFF, thinks matter, the stuff that actually relates to winning games, to moving people, to successful plays, and he does all the things well that offensive linemen like rubbing people into the ground, teabagging them after the play, the kind of nasty thing that everybody loves. So he is the perfect offensive line prospect. What's interesting is that he was a guard taken at number 6 overall. The question for me is, would you give him a shot at tackle? Because that is the more valuable position in today's NFL. The only reason he was playing guard in college wasn't because he couldn't play tackle. It was because Notre Dame had Mike McGlinchey. They had
Ronnie Stanley, another first-round pick.
Go. So they had guys that were already at that position. They just didn't need him a tackle. He found his way into guard, where he dominated. At the next level, the most valuable place to put him might be at a tackle, where the Colts do still need some help.
Well, especially since they go in the second round and they get Braden Smith out of Auburn, who's another one of our favorite guards. So now, when you look at this roster, you have Jack Mewhort, who's been, injured for the last couple of years, but when he's healthy, is actually a pretty solid NFL guard. If Braden Smith can step in and Mewhort's healthy, would you actually try Quinton Nelson maybe at right tackle, where Denzel Good has had his struggles the last couple of years? You have Anthony Costanzo at left tackle, who's solid, and then Ryan Kelly at center, who was their first-round pick a couple of years ago. If Nelson could play right tackle and solidify that offensive line, they go from one of the league's worst to at least average to plus. That's a huge step forward.
Absolutely. Look, I think we've championed all the way along. If you have a guy who's played fantastically at tackle in college, don't automatically move him into guard at the next level because he has that type of body. Give him a chance to fail at tackle first, because it's so much more valuable. I think the reverse is true. If you've got a guy that you think has the skill set to play outside at the next level, give him a shot at doing that before you keep him inside, knowing that whatever happens, worst case scenario, you should have a dominant guard in your hands, even if it all goes wrong.
I am assuming they're going to keep Nelson at guard, though. By all reports, that seems to be what they're going to do. And then we mentioned Braden Smith. Let's compare them side by side, because Nelson put up probably the best 3-year stretch we've seen from a guard. But Braden Smith was pretty solid as well. You see Nelson as a redshirt freshman in 2015, an 85.5 overall grade. That's in our 0 to 100 system. All of these numbers, all a part of the PFF Draft Guide. You guys can find that as part of PFF Edge and Elite. Nelson comes back with a 90.2 in 2016 and the 95.1 last year. And look at Braden Smith, 83.2, 88.3, 88.1. We're talking about 3 solid years from him as well. Did the Colts really get this much better on the offensive line in just one draft?
And they've been attacking the offensive line for a couple of seasons now. They finally realized that they needed to add these guys and protect Andrew Luck. A critic might suggest that the time to do that was before he went down with a potentially career-threatening injury, not after. But look, we can't cry over spilled milk here. They're at least moving in the right direction. I think this offensive line could be dramatically better in 2018, especially with Ryan Kelly going in another year of development under his belt.
So we talked about they've got all these picks, and they definitely attack some needs. So the 2 guards, a good start there. That sandwiched their number 36 overall pick, their first second-round pick, who was Darius Leonard. By the way, they had 4 second-rounders, so they really had a chance to add a ton of talent. But Darius Leonard out of South Carolina State, we didn't have the full data set on him because we didn't grade every single snap of every FCS team, but we did see him at the Senior Bowl, and he was excellent throughout the whole week of practice. We're the only ones that grade every single rep of practice, one-on-ones, and the team drills. Team drills, he was unbelievable. 15 tackles and 8 stops, essentially those tackles close to the line of scrimmage that end up in an offensive loss. So Leonard was excellent all over the field, though. We did have some question marks about him on tape. It was probably a little bit high for us, but given the massive need at linebacker for the Colts, a lot of upside with this pick.
Dominated in the game itself as well, 11 tackles, 6 defensive stops in the game. But you're right, when you go back and look at that Senior Bowl footage, this is a week of practice against the top-level competition, an all-star game. This is why all the scouts, all the personnel guys are down there in Mobile for the entire week. It's to see how these guys practice when the stakes are raised, when the level of competition is higher. It's the closest thing you're going to see to how these guys react to the NFL, where everything is tougher. And he was fantastic that week. Not to say he was perfect. There were some plays in there where he got beaten in coverage or didn't quite make it past a running back on one-on-one pass rush drills. So he wasn't flawless, but he was very good. And you can certainly see what the Colts love from that week.
The Colts just went with all sorts of little mini themes here. So they get their 2 guards, and now they're going to attack the edge rush with their late second-round picks. It's Kamoko Turay out of Rutgers, Taquan Lewis out of Ohio State. Turay especially the more interesting player here because just a weird career path. He actually had his career high in snaps as a true freshman, hardly saw the field in 2015 and 16, and then 2017 bounces back and has another strong year, especially as a pass rusher. So we're talking about a guy who's only been on the field for 1,051 career snaps. That's a little over a season's worth of action. But when he's been on the field, he's got that Gumby type of edge rush look to him. He's got the look, man. He's got the look and the burst, and the production's been excellent.
Yeah, those numbers almost speak for themselves. 20.1% pressure rate. A pressure every 5 pass rushing snaps in his college career. That is a phenomenal rate. That's higher than Myles Garrett. That's right up there with the greatest production rates we've seen in college in terms of generating pressure. Now, not all of that is clean pressure, beating guys immediately, dominant, decisive kind of pressure where you actually achieve something dramatic to do it. Some of it is cleanup, some of it is unblocked, but that is an extremely impressive rate over a career.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about a guy that like I said, even grade and production-wise, peaked as a true freshman and was good, not great, as a senior, but certainly worth a look in the second round. Taquan Lewis, again, more of just a solid player. I think he went a little bit higher than we would have liked, had him more as a third-round player, but this was a pretty weak edge rush class, Sam. So it's one of those, you have to go get a guy that can get after the quarterback, and Lewis's his best season was 2016, getting after the quarterback, 81.9, but just like a low 80s pass rush grade, which is, again, good, not great, and at least worth a look to just throw into this rotation in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I think so. Look, this is a team, as we said, they needed help all over the place. Edge rusher is definitely one of the bigger holes on this roster. I think it's a good move to take both those guys and see what they can do.
The next theme of this draft, since they had so many picks, they went and looked for a pass-catching running back. It was Nyheim Hines out of NC State in the 4th round. 6th-round pick Jordan Wilkins out of Ole Miss can do some nice things out of the backfield. But I know Hines is a guy that you watched really closely throughout this whole process, and you kept pulling up plays like, hey, watch this one, watch that one. He could see the field early, especially on passing downs.
Definitely. This is a backfield in flux. You know, they let Frank Gore walk in the offseason. The only guy really left there was Marlon Mack, who's coming off some surgery himself. I think there's an opportunity there for both these guys to get some early playing time and see what they can do. Hines in particular, though, I love. He's a guy that I think plays a lot bigger than he is. He's a small back that a lot of people are automatically going to label him as a scat back type of player, but he plays with this reckless abandon, throws himself into contact, throws himself into gaps at the line of scrimmage. He averaged 3.8 yards per carry after contact. This is a guy that doesn't just go down because he's a small guy. He will fight through contact and generate some yards after the hit.
Yeah, the other pick that I really liked was 6th-round pick Deon Kane out of Clemson. His production dropped last year after Deshaun Watson went to the NFL because he caught 43.8% of his deep passes with Watson in 2016. 2017 drops to 23.5%. But when you see him get down the field, he's got that 4.4 speed with good size, knows how to use his hands to get that little subtle push-off and make a play. They need playmakers all over the place. Deon Kane has a chance to maybe see the field, at least as a deep threat. Not great going over the middle of the field, but he can get down the field, and if Luck is healthy, with his ability to throw the ball down the field, Kane could have some productive seasons here. When you look at the Colts draft, there's a lot of picks. I do think they added a lot of talent. I can't help but be left a little bit wanting for more, just because knowing where our draft board was compared to some of the players that they took, I think they could have really hit a grand slam here, and maybe this is only a single or a double. Still solid, adding a lot of talent, but I know you love the baseball references. I feel like they could have added a little bit more at some key positions.
Yeah, we ended up calling this an average draft overall. They had a lot of picks, 11, I think, players they brought in total. But I think given some of the talent on the board at the times they picked, I think they could have gone in different directions and maybe ended up with a bit more talent.
So there you have it. It's your Indianapolis Colts PFF Draft Review, powered by PFF Edge and Elite.